Okay, so in this section, we're going to kind of just talk about an intro to polynomials. We've actually looked at some polynomials before. Our quadratics from last unit, from chapter 5, were polynomials. Also lines, back when we were talking about lines, those are polynomials. Here's the textbook definition. A polynomial is a monomial or a sum of monomials. So here are monomials. Basically, it just means they're one term. All three of these are monomials. So these are polynomials. Also, if you add those together, the sum, that's also a polynomial. So I could add in 4x to the fourth. Still a polynomial. It doesn't matter how big it is. Now, when we talk about polynomials in this chapter, we're typically going to look at exponents bigger than an x squared. But the quadratics, like we had last chapter, are still polynomials, but we're going to talk about the bigger ones in this chapter too, primarily. Now, in this section, I just want to make sure we know all of the terminology. So we're going to talk about two ways to describe polynomials. The first one is by how many terms there are. So if you've got one term, it's called a monomial. I think you've probably heard that before. There are two terms, two terms. It's a binomial, like a bicycle has two wheels. It's a binomial. Three terms. It's a trinomial. And basically everything bigger than that you can describe as being a polynomial of however many terms. Here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So a polynomial of 4 terms. Sometimes people will phrase it as a 4-term polynomial. Either one's fine. So you could have a 6-term, a 10-term, whatever. Okay, so here's the first way we're going to kind of describe them. The second way that we're going to describe them is by their biggest exponent. So this is a 4th degree. Looking at this is a 3rd degree, so we're talking about the biggest exponent here. So I'm just going to rewrite this sort of in standard form, putting the biggest exponent first. So this is a to the 4th power. I'm fine with you phrasing it that way. So this is a 4th power or 4th degree. So you can use degree, you can say power, either one. Polynomial of 2 terms. Now what's a polynomial of 2 terms called? Binomial. So a 4th degree, because of the exponent, binomial. Okay, now before we do anything here, let's get this simplified down a little bit because I can combine like terms here. So I'm going to combine those and I have 5x to the 3rd plus x squared minus 4x. Okay, two things that I have here. I've got my exponent, it's to the 3rd power. Now if it's to the 3rd power, just like 2nd power is quadratic, 3rd power is cubic. Anything bigger than that you can describe as 4th degree, 5th degree, 6th degree, etc. But 3rd power, 3rd degree, is cubic. And then we need to describe how many terms. 1, 2, 3. So trinomial. Okay, now let's do 2 more of these. Now before I actually go through and classify this, I think I had better go through and, hold on, I just lost my, there we go. I need to go through and simplify, so I'm going to distribute out my negative and then combine like terms. Alright, so I have my x to the 4th here, and I just like to put it in order. So I'm going to mark them out as I combine them. I've got my x to the 3rd, so negative 12, positive 9 is a negative 3. Okay, and like I said, I like to mark them out as I go so that I remember. Okay, I've got my 5x and negative 54. Okay, now 2 parts when I classify this. First of all, 4th power. Second of all, 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. So this is a fourth power or fourth degree, 1, 2, 3, 4 polynomial of 4 terms. And get a little bit lengthy to describe if you've got both of them that you've got to kind of write out. Now, if it's something that has their own kind of special names, like the cubic trinomial, it's a little bit shorter to write. Okay, and last one before we look at our other thing we're going to do in this section. So same thing, I'm going to combine like terms, so distribute out my negative, and then combine my like terms. So the x to the thirds, I have 2x to the thirds, negative 3 plus 5. X squareds, I have 7 and a negative 9, so a negative 2. Plus 8x, that's the only x I have, and minus 27. Okay, so my power is to the third power, which is called cubic. So cubic, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, so polynomial of 4 terms. So cubic polynomial of 4 terms. Okay, now if you don't have your calculator, go ahead and pull that out. We're going to use that on our last thing we're going to look at. Now, in the last section, we went through and we found a model for our, to describe our points. We called it regression. We did quadratic in chapter 5. Today, we're going to also look at regression. I'm going to give you some points here, and what I want us to do is either sketch or write out a cubic or a quadratic model for this. So I'm going to go through, put my calculator, and I'm going to put those in a list. So I'm going to go to Stat, Edit, and I'm going to go through and put in my x's here, my y's here. So my x's were 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I'm going to go through and I'm going to put in my other ones. So negative 12, these are my y's, 10, 4, and 42. Okay, now I said that we were going to find cubic or quadratic. We're going to do cubic on this one, so I'm going to just cancel out. So I'm going to go back to Stat and over to Calc, and then this time I want to use cubic. Now you'll see there's the quadratic regression we used before. Quartic is if it's to the 4th power. There's some other options down there. We wanted to do cubic. Now, if you just put the regression in like this, it'll use list 1 and 2. So if you're good with that, I'm good with that, then just hit enter. If you put your information in something other than lists 1 and 2, you need to specify that to the calculator. Okay, so here then is my answer. It's in this form. Here's the A, here's the B, here's the C, here's the D. Don't ask me why they don't just put them in there, but this is the way it comes up. So here then is my equation. Y equals 12x to the third minus 50x squared plus 60x minus 12. Alright, so that's a little bit of an intro to our polynomials. We'll continue them on in the rest of this section.